So, Bob, could you introduce yourself and just a little brief intro?
Brief? Okay.
Okay.
I'm Bob Pennycook. I'm a landscape artist. I'm a multimedia landscape artist. I work in pastels and acrylic and oil and coal wax and printmaking. I've been doing that all my life, really, and then turned professional 30 years ago and have been making a living doing it for 30 years. We started in Toronto. I lived in Toronto. We moved here about 17 years ago, and we moved here because I wanted a studio on my property, and it took me another 10 years to build the studio on my property, but I now have it. And people ask me if moving here has made a difference in my landscaping, and it hasn't really, because when I lived in the city, I was always out in the country with my camera getting resource material for my landscapes, because I'm not an urban landscape painter, so there was nothing there for me, so I would get in my car, drive into the country. So here, I just walk out my door, and everything is here. It's great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful studio.
Yeah, it is nice. I'm very happy with it. Interesting connection. We had looked for houses here, and we found one that we really liked. Linda York's house, actually. Mm-hmm. We found one that we really liked, and we decided we didn't want to buy right then, but the builder, we ended up being introduced to the builder, and when I decided to have the studio built, I contacted the builder, and he came in and built here. So it was a great price. They worked hard. They did a great job. They did everything I wanted for the studio, and they tried, and they ended up donating a hanging system, a speaker system for my music, and it was great. And putting the screen is something I had never thought of. So I had a lot of nice bonuses from them. So I'm very happy here. I come out every day, at least part of the day, and I just paint in quiet. And today the door is open because I like to hear the birds when I paint, because once a year you get the birds.
Right. Also, I read that you started very young as an artist, like just because it was something you loved to do as a boy. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Are you the one
Well,
in the
without telling you my
family?
age, it's been many years. Yeah, I guess as a kid, I never went to. I didn't know. Let me back off. I did go to art college. I went to the Ontario College of Art, but I stayed there for only a year because I figured I wasn't going to get a job from art. In those days, you didn't have a lot of choices. So I took journalism instead afterwards. So my training is sorry, there's a ladder going up. my training is sort of fairly, well, not recent, but my training is sort of from my later years, sort of mid-20s and on. At university, I minored in fine art. I went to University of Waterloo, and they didn't offer fine art then, but they did have classes, so I minored in fine art. And then after that, I went to the art college, and then I went to journalism after that because I didn't see a future. But when I was a kid, I painted, I drew. Friday, I still remember in elementary school, the art classes were 1 to 1:30 every Friday afternoon. So yeah, that was the best time of the whole week for me in school. So, and then it's just something that I held on to for life. I think it's a great thing to hang on to as well. You just
Absolutely.
It's a relaxing skill to have, and everybody needs a creative outlet.
Yeah.
Whether you dance, sing, or whatever. I play ukulele too in a ukulele band, so there's another. It's just another creative outlet. Yeah.
Where's your ukulele?
In the house.
Oh, darn.
I should show it to you. It's amazing. It's made out of tin cans.
Oh, really?
Tomato soup cans.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think everyone has creativity within them, whether they ever mind that particular vein.
Also, I find that everybody thinks they can't do a good job, so
Exactly.
they don't
So
try
why
it.
bother?
So, yeah. So I think I enjoy painting, but I think I enjoy teaching more. And as I said, I've taught all over North America, and it's exciting to see people change during a class just from the fact that they come in and think, well, I'm not going to have anything worthwhile at the end, and then they kind of let loose in the 6-hour or 3-hour class and do something that they think is worthwhile. I also learned not to offer criticism of people's work because most people are happy no matter what they do. So and that's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's such a personal thing, isn't it, to create a piece of art?
Yeah, very personal.
I loved how you describe as well just your inner process of coming to the canvas or the paper or...
Yeah. The inner process is kind of amazing. I start, well, you saw, when you walked in here, you saw me put paint on here, and that's how I start. It's just paint. I have no idea what's going to happen to that, but I pick a color I happen to like that day and put it on, just build up layers from there, and just not have to, I don't worry about it because I know it's while it's important to me, it's also expendable, so I can go over top of it and change it as I go along. And if I'm happy with it, that's great. It's a bonus. And if I'm not, it goes to my storage area.
What have you learned about yourself through creating art?
I've learned that I can be patient. I mentioned that I had taken journalism, so I worked for Toronto Star Canadian Living. I was editorial director of a magazine publishing house, and I had a staff of like 50 people there. So you knew that every day was stressful. Every day was a rush to get things done because you had deadlines all the time. But with painting, I learned that I can step back from that and I can just do what I want. The painting doesn't have to be done in 10 minutes, and it doesn't have to be done in 10 days. You just work on it, and if it's not working, you set it aside and start another one, or switch over to a print.
Right. Yeah.
So I've learned that, and I've also learned that things change a lot in terms of my likes, my dislikes, and my color choices, and just how I react to things. I used to, when I started painting, I thought it was all about creating realistic-looking things because that's what people do, right? When they start painting, and then I realized that you don't have to look. It just doesn't have to look real anymore. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I really got the sense of the joy it brings you to create. And
if you can't find joy, why bother?
Yeah, exactly. Are there days where you're just really uninspired?
Yes and no. I don't actually believe in inspiration because to me it's the work that and I think I wrote a newsletter that said, I'm halfway through and then I get inspired. So unless I'm here working, I'm never going to be inspired usually. So I come in every day.
Yeah, so don't wait for inspiration to strike. No,
never wait for inspiration.
Right.
It will often not come. There's a cup of coffee or a TV show that's it's far more important than coming into the studio to paint. So.
Yeah. What are you looking for when you're teaching? What are you looking for in a student who's being guided by your instruction?
I guess I want to encourage them just to be free and sort of develop their own voice in painting, not to follow what I'm telling them necessarily. They can, when I start a class, I always say, you may hate what we're doing today, but hopefully you will learn something and bring it to your own practice. And I want them to experience that, that joy again, to be satisfied and to be able to sort of lose control for the moment and just create. Make that next hour exciting, or the next 3 hours exciting. And I've had a couple of classes where people would do something and they tried it before and it hasn't worked, and then during the class it has worked, and they get really excited, and they kind of stand up and go take a break because they have to pause for a minute. Look at, I did that. So that kind of epiphany that they get is really exciting.
Do you take rank beginners? That's a personal question.
I have to tell you my story on rank beginners. We had I started with, when I went professional, I started with pastel painting. I was working big landscape pastels, and I was teaching. And I had cold called an agent. It was the time of Robert Bateman, the Prince, and I cold called an agent who was selling those. And I said, I have these great pastel paintings. Would you be interested in looking at them? So he looked at them and he decided he would represent them along with his Robert Bateman's and things. So I was in 10 galleries at one point, and it was only for a short period of time. But then one day, I was teaching at a high school, a night class at a high school in pastel, and the principal asked me if I knew anybody who did folk art. And I said, sure, I do. But I had no idea what folk art was at the time. But I thought, well, I can learn it. I'm an artist. I can do this. So I spent the summer learning. And my first class was 48 students, all ranked beginners, with a ranked beginner teacher. It was absolutely amazing. What we got through. And I was like that much ahead of them at the time. So
that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah, it was. It turned out really well. But then from there I learned more. So I ended up publishing 12 books. I was in 5 magazines in the U.S. Almost every month, and I traveled to all over North America for teaching. And then I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I'm back here doing landscapes in my studio. I don't think of pastel as a popular media to use, but
I love them.
Bevel Art offered a workshop in pastel, and they had like 20 people in the class, and they all had pastels. So I can see a number of people around.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty forgiving.
I guess.
Okay, tell me your, because I don't know.
That sanded board up there. Once you put pastel on it, it's hard to get rid of it if you don't like it. Yeah, it's got texture on there, and you put your pastel on, it grips the surface, and then you have to use water or alcohol to smooth it out and get rid of it. And it's a different color than black, so I find it as frustrating as watercolor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you do watercolor at all?
I used to teach watercolor.
But you don't.
I hate it.
Yeah.
No, I don't like watercolor. I just find it too demanding, I guess. Mm-hmm. You put that paint, that pigment down, and it's there. Really can't do anything else about it. So acrylic is great. It's dry in 30 seconds. You go right over top of it.
And the colors are rich.
Yeah, they are. They are richer than watercolor for sure. Although I have seen some watercolors lately that are really strong in their pigment. But acrylics are certainly more richer than watercolor. But oils, I love oils because they are intensely more colorful than even acrylic. Yeah.
So you do work in oil still? I
do work in oil, but it has to be with cool wax. Because I don't use terps, I don't use any of the mediums to clean up, and I hate cleaning brushes. So I use shop towels and palette knives to paint. So all my oil paintings are, that painting is an oil painting with shop towels and palette knives. I don't have to clean anything.
That's quite a conundrum for an artist. Not on a clean brush.
Well, you've heard me say I have to clean my studio, and I hate doing that too. So it's
well, this is pretty spotless. So
it's pretty clean today. I worked at it.
Have you ever done abstract, like pure
abstract?
Pure abstract.
I've tried it. I'm terrible at it. Because I need something to focus on.
Yes.
So I need my work is abstract realism, I guess. There's always something in it that you can recognize, and it's usually a tree because that's sort of my motif for all my paintings. Mm-hmm. So others, I work with abstract realism. The background is abstracted, and then The tree kind of is, well, the tree definitely is abstracted too. It's just this is all torn paper on here. So I just tear shapes and glue them down onto the surface. But with my work, there's something recognizable in every piece, but not necessarily what I see and not necessarily what you would think of as a landscape. It's just my take on how I feel that particular day. So I can have some darker paintings on those cold winter days that in the studio, and some brighter paintings like the pink one that was out there. That is just much more cheerful. And then I have a print on top of my press over there. I have a print that I just did, and it's a monotype, and it's a landscape, and it's all yellow, and it's all just shapes and all just textures. And then I came along and I hand printed. I have a piece of masonite with some string on it, and so I found, okay, that looks like trees. So I inked up the plate and just pressed the plate across the surface. It looks like a forest on the piece. So I was happy with that because it's a landscape, not realistic, but it's a landscape.
Yeah. No, this is lovely. I like the impressionistic aspect of it, but there you've used multiple media again.
Yeah. I do. I like doing that. The only thing when I paint with oils are oils, so I just keep it like that. But when I'm with water-based materials, I'll throw anything in. So the one I started this morning, it's going to end up just being all paper again, like this one. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you. How you decide what becomes a print?
It's more, the printmaking to me is more something that starts my day, actually. Although today I was in here painting because it's wet, because I know that I wanted to do this for my newsletter. But I usually come in here and I start over there. There's a gel plate on top.
Yes.
That's what I use for a lot of my monotypes, because I can have that sitting here, and I usually do in the morning. That's sitting here, and I come in and I put some paint on it, and I have paper all cut up in the drawer. I pull that paper out and I put it on top and pull a color. And then I think, okay, what else can I do with this? So then I put another color on top and press the paper down and see what happens. A lot of times it doesn't work, but if it does work, it's glorious. It's just it's an amazing feeling to think that you can put any color, any shape, any texture on that surface. Put a piece of paper over top, and those I hand rub. Plexi I'll put through the press, but and rub it, lift it off, and get like I should know what I'm going to get, but it's a surprise every time I lift that piece of paper. When I do printmaking, to me, I started it when I went full-time. I belonged to a group in Toronto that had a very large printing press and silkscreen facilities, screen printing facilities. So I did a lot of screen printing. I love screen printing, but I don't have running water in here, so I can't do that. But I got used to the press and printing my monotypes large on a press. And then when we moved here, I didn't have a press. I had and jelly plates hadn't been invented, so I didn't do prints for the longest time. And then when the gel plates came out, I started using those, and I was on their design committee for a while, developing prints and videos for them. And then the press there I've only had it about 3 years now, and I love using that for monoprints because the gel plate is a little more predictable with its results for me. This isn't. I just put color on there and it'll go anywhere because it's slippery surface, and I'll roll it on or hand brush it on. It just goes anywhere. So you just, to me this is a more creative approach because you can, you just keep adding color until you think you're done. Just keep going until you're done.
What is some advice you would give to someone who is deciding that they want to be an artist? And you've been through your own journey of realizing I may not make a living doing this, so I better have a backup plan, which is common, I think, for artists.
Yeah.
But what if you saw something in somebody and thought, this person has the potential to really be an artist?
I see that often, actually.
Yeah.
And almost in every class I teach, there's one person whose art stands out. They get no special treatment because I think if there's 5 or 500 in the class, they're all there. They're all there learning, and they want to do it for their own enjoyment. For the most part, if they want to do it as a professional, that's not really up to me to say, because you're right. They do need a backup job for most of it. Like I've been a professional for 30 years now, and I still have the backup of teaching. I was not so much now, but before it was. You have to put food on your table. Mm-hmm. So if you want to develop your skill, I would say just practice, just working on it. Develop a business mind too, because most artists don't have that, don't want it really. But you do have to have sort of not necessarily an aptitude, but you can't be afraid of the business part. And it's not selling out, it's just if you don't promote yourself, nobody's going to know you're there. And if nobody's going to know you're there, nobody's going to buy your work. And you'll be doing it as a hobby forever, which is fine for most people. But if you want to go a step beyond that, you need to get out and sell yourself. Mm-hmm. So whether that's, approaching galleries, or whether it's writing newsletters, or whether it's setting up your own shows someplace, or holding open houses and knowing how to market those open houses in your studio, then you have to go for it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to make an observation here, Bob. That painting behind you, which is beautiful, you're wearing those same colors, blues and greens. Is there an affinity for those colors? Yeah.
My entire wardrobe is blue. With the odd thing in black.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then green too, I guess, but not as much. It's almost always blue. And I don't know why, it's just a color I like. And actually, one of the studio tours I had in here, somebody came in and said, "Oh my God, everything's blue." So, and I hadn't noticed that. I had no idea that I painted in blue. But somebody came in and noticed it right away, and I thought, yeah, I guess I do. Yeah. So I tried branching out. I got some, yellows and reds and pinks now. So, but I still go back to blue. Yeah. And I guess because I'm a landscape painter, when you look out there through the window, you're going to see blue and green.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, it made sense. I was struck looking at that painting behind you and looking at your clothing and thought, this makes sense.
I dress to suit my paintings, or I paint to suit my clothing. Yeah.
It's wonderful what you've got here, what you made, what you've created.
Yeah, it's
in order to create your art.
Well, Darlene keeps telling me that I could spend my life without people around me, because I can just be in here, enjoying myself forever.